All right. Start with a mic line. Start with a mic line. Here's the input into my console. If you got a sheet of paper, you need to turn it sideways. I'm going to fill it all up. Mic line. What do we need immediately after the mic line? We talked about this today. Come on.
A to D conversion?
No, this is an analog console.
Oh, like a preamp?
You need a preamp. Yes, indeed. I need a preamp. I need to bring that line level up, that mic level, up to line level. Yes, indeed. And then what you see here is a diagram for a patch point. In this diagram, this patch point is normal, so the signal flows automatically. And we're going to get into patch points a little bit more down the road. Why do I need a patch point here? This is kind of strange. Why would I want a patch point after the preamp? What would you tend to want to patch in here?
You could send like the raw signal into some, that's why it would be right after the preamp, is because it's the most direct.
Where would I send it?
To like EQ or compressor.
Yep. Typically, an equalizer or compressor, you bring it in right after the preamp. So this patch point would be called insert send and insert return. Top row would be channel insert send. You would take that out into your compressor and then bring it back into the channel. What's next? In a typical console. What do I want to be able to do with this signal long before I send it out? This recording is going to go, so we need to fix it. What can I do?
You can do some processing.
What kind of processing?
EQ or dynamics.
Yes, indeed. I'm going to have an EQ processing block here. Internal console EQ. Internal console EQ. Now, this part of the console that I'm working on, is this the channel side or the monitor side?
Channel.
Channel, yes, indeed. Channel side. Channel side does two things, remember. One, it amplifies the signal. And two, it routes it to the multitrack. All right. I got a processing block. What do I need before I can send this out to Pro Tools? Any guesses?
Like an output fader?
Yes. A channel fader. A channel fader. On the Neve, the channel faders are the large faders. On the O2R, where are the channel faders? This was only a few hours ago. Where are the channel faders?
On tracks 1 through 16. 1 through 24.
You got the right idea.
Okay.
How do you determine where the channel faders are or the monitor faders?
They're on layer 1.
Layer 1.
Layer 1.
Channel 1, layer 1. All right, I got a channel fader. So on layer 1, anytime you have fader, what do you have with that? What do you always have on top of your fader?
Mute and solo.
Mute, yes indeed, mute. Channel mute. So this is kind of the input electronics, the channel side. Now, what do we need to do with this signal? Where do we need to route it? Where is the channel side routing the signal?
Pro Tools or the Multitrack?
The multitrack, yes indeed. So we have a multitrack routing matrix. A multitrack routing matrix. Typically a multitrack routing matrix will have a series of buses. A series of buses. On the old analog consoles you had 32 buses because you wanted to be able to bus to any track. The O2R96 has 8 buses and they route to 1 through 8 and 9 through 16. Well, what if you wanted to have more than 8 tracks going? Typically, consoles have what's called a direct out. A direct out. A direct out is a signal path out of a channel strip directly into that track of the multitrack. It's a direct output out of a channel strip directly into that input of the multitrack. So, if you look at the Neve Genesis, the Neve doesn't really have a multitrack routing matrix. But every one of those tracks, every one of those channels has a direct out that goes directly into Pro Tools. So mic 1 coming in, channel input 1, has a direct out that goes to input 1 of Pro Tools. Goes to input 1 of Pro Tools. Now, you think about that for a second. Why did consoles not have that before? Well, they really did, but back in the day, you didn't usually take every mic and put it on its own track. I didn't have enough tracks. I had 8 drum mics, but if I used 8 tracks for my drums, I got to put the band, bass, guitar, keyboards and stuff. Then I got 5 horn players. I got to get them on there. I got a string section, and then I need 4 or 5 tracks for vocals. There was no way I could waste 8 tracks on drums, even if I had wanted to. So typically you would combine them down. So I would have all my drums on 4 tracks. Kick, snare, and then left and right, which was the overhead mics and the tom mics. It was all mixed in so that I had saved my tracks. So the direct out takes a channel input and sends it directly into Pro Tools. Nowadays, most everybody takes a mic and puts it on its own Pro Tools track. It's just a fact of life, good, bad, or indifferent. Okay. Multi-track buses. We talked about buses. What are buses? Buses are just a signal path in the console. And buses typically have what we call bus trims. That allows you to bring down the overall bus level and not affect the internal balance that you have on the individual channels. In the O2R96, where are the bus trims? Anybody remember?
They're on the 4th layer, like 46 to 54, right? Or something.
Yes, indeed. The master layer. The bus trims are on the master layer. And the bus trims are the last stop before what? After the bus trims, where are we sending these signals?
To the master?
Master what?
The master bus.
No,
Oh.
that's definitely not right. Where are they going?
Program bus?
No, this is the channel side. What's the output of the channel side? This needs to be automatic. What's the output of the channel side? What's the dividing line between the channel side of the console and the monitor side of the console?
The computer?
More specifically, yeah, it is the computer.
The program bus?
No. The multitrack tape machine. In our case, it's a computer. The multitrack. So if you look at this, the multitrack is the output of the channel side. The channel side is feeding the multitrack. That's what it's designed to do. It takes an input signal, amplifies it, and routes it to the multitrack. That's the function of the channel side of the console. Now, if you notice up here, what do we have? We have another patch point. This would be the bus out patch point and the tape machine in patch point. And again, this would be normal, so you didn't have to patch it. So this is the channel side of the console. The input is the mic, the preamp, the output is the bus going to the multitrack. Everything from this point on is the monitor side. So far, so good? So the multitrack routing matrix routes the input signal to the multitrack. Okay, what do we need after the multitrack? The monitor side of the console can look at one of two things. One is the tape machine. One is the tape machine. This is very important. A monitor side of the console can look at the returns from the tape machine, or it can look at the bus itself. Peyton, you asked about if you could use a console without a tape machine. Yes, you can set this up so that all the monitor side is looking at the bus, and you wouldn't need the tape machine at all. You could basically mix something live to your 2-track. So the monitor side of the console can either see the tape return or the bus itself, and that's selected in the monitor input select. Monitor input select. On the SSL, this is called ready tape and ready group. The Neve calls it something really squirrely. All right, on the monitor side of the console, what do we need? Think about it. Layer 2, 25 through 48.
Faders.
We need a fader, and of course a mute to go with it. So a monitor fader, a monitor fader. And again, the O2R is a fairly simple board. The channel faders are always going to be on 1 to 24, and the monitor faders are always going to be on 25 through 48. In the Neve, the monitor faders and the channel faders actually change status. Sometimes the monitor fader will be on the small little rotary fader, and sometimes it will be on the large fader. Okay, this monitor signal path, where is it going?
To the program bus.
To the program bus. Yes, indeed. We want to take this to the program bus. And in order to go to the program bus, what do we need before that? We've got the fader here, the monitor fader, and the monitor mute. What do we need in order to send this to the program bus? What do you need in order to send a monaural signal to the program bus? What is this?
The pan pot, putting it in stereo.
Yes, indeed. You need a pan pot so that we can pan it back and forth between the left and right speakers in the program bus. So the program bus is here. In this case, the program bus is stereo. If I was mixing 5.1 surround, the program bus would have 6 buses. But in this case, it's stereo. So left-right pan pot going to the stereo bus. The stereo bus. The program bus. Okay, where is this program bus going to go? The output of the monitor side is the program bus. Where is the program bus going?
The mix machine.
The mix machine and
There are speakers.
the speakers, yes indeed. So, here is our program bus, left and right, and here is the master fader. The master fader will always be before the mix recorder, and here is my mix machine. So the program bus is feeding the mix recorder and also output to the speakers. All right, here's a switch, a gang switch. What is it switching between? What is it switching between? Take a look at the signal flow. If the switch is up like this, what am I listening to?
Mix recorder?
No, if the switch is up like this, what am I listening to?
The master fader.
Yeah, the program bus, the output of the master fader, the program bus. If I move this switch down, both sides, so they were connecting here, what am I listening to?
Then it would be the mix recorder.
Yes, then it would be the mix recorder. So this is the auxiliary monitor select. And on the O2R96, this was over there on the far right. And in order to listen to program bus, you selected stereo. In order to listen to the computer output, you listen to 2-track analog 2. And in order to listen to the Pro Tools AES output, you listen to 2-track digital 1. So Aux Monitor. Aux Monitor. This selects what is feeding the speakers. This selects what we are listening to in the control room. Now, over here we have another potentiometer. What is this controlling?
Volume?
Yeah, the volume of the speakers. So this is typically going to be separate than the master fader. I did do this job at a studio in Detroit, and the moron had his speakers hooked up here after the master fader. So when it was time to mix, you had to listen to the music so loud in order to get the right level on tape. I finally said, you know, you got to fix this, buddy. This is not ready for prime time. So, control room level. It's after the auxiliary monitor select, and it feeds the speakers. So far, so good? All right. I need headphones, and I need effects. So I'm going to add a thing here that goes a monitor Q select. Here's a Q bus. So we have a mono Q bus, and we have a mono reverb bus. These would be the individual levels on each strip that are feeding the effects bus and the Q send. So these would be like the encoders on the O2R96 or the auxiliary sends on the Neve. Now, here's an important concept. There's a switch here called pre-post. It connects this send, this auxiliary send, to the monitor channel either before the fader or after the fader. Either before the fader or after the fader. Huh, that's kind of interesting. Why would you want to do that? Let's say I'm sending somebody a Q mix, a headphone mix. Would I want that headphone mix to be pre-fader or post-fader?
Pre-fader.
Why?
Because they want to mix it themselves. Like give themselves a little mix while they're, you know what I mean? When they're in the studio recording.
In essence, the concept, yeah. So they would have their own mix, whether they're mixing it or I'm mixing it. And if I change my monitor levels, does that affect their mix?
No.
No, this is crucial because like the singers will usually want to hear themselves really loud. Lots of times they want a bunch of reverb on themselves. Sometimes they want to listen to the click, things that I don't want to listen to in the control room. I'd like to have control of my own mix and be able to adjust it without affecting them. Because periodically, if I'm sitting tracking vocals for hours, periodically I'll just pull everything down and rebuild my mix just because I can. Give me something to do and also kind of try to get a better handle on it. So, sends to a Q send are typically going to be pre-fade. Write that down. It's a crucial concept. Q sends are typically pre-fade. All right, here's the next question. I have an auxiliary send going to effects bus to add reverb. Do I want that pre-fade or do I want that post-fade?
Pre-fader?
Why? You knew I was going to ask.
Yeah. Because you want to be able to use the fader to like kind of adjust your like wet and dry mix, sort of.
It's an interesting concept. If I were to send this pre-fade and get the right amount of reverb, and then I were to fade the track out, what would I hear?
The reverb.
I would just hear the reverb. So that the reverb is not following the level of the track. So if I pull the track down, the track gets very quiet, but the reverb amount stays the same. And the image appears to go away from you because you hear more reverb. Then when I push the vocal up, he gets drier because he's above the reverb level, and he seems to come in. I had a mix where a guy did this to me one time, sent me a mix that I was supposed to deal with. And he had made it pre-fade, and every time he moved the vocal level up, you could tell the guy would go forward or the guy would go back. It was just, it was not right. So typically you want any kind of monitor level going to an effects send to be post-fader, so that the effects level follows the level of the vocal. So Q sends are going to be pre-fade. Effects sends are going to be post-fade. Now, here's an interesting question. Do I send Q sends? So, typically consoles are also going to have auxiliary sends on the channel side. And they will also have their own pre and post. And one will feed the Q send and one will feed the effects send. I'm tracking a band. Do I want to send the cue from the monitor side or the channel side? Do I want to send the cue from the channel side to or the monitor side?
I mean, it probably depends, right? Like, it depends if they want to hear like certain effects or something.
All right, here's a scenario. So we're tracking a band, and I set up all the cue on the channel side. So they're hearing all the mics and stuff. And then we get done, and the bass player says, man, that was a great take, but I got one flub. I need to go punch in from measure 17 to 25. So I rewind to measure 2017, and I start playing. What does the band hear in their headphones? Think about it. I'm sending it from the channel side, so I'm sending it directly from the microphones, not from the tape return. And when they're tracking, it's great. They hear all the microphones. They're all out there playing. As soon as we go to punch in that bass part, what happens?
They don't know where to start because they don't have any record, like they can't hear the part up till that.
Yes. They can't hear what they were playing because I've got the cue set up off the channel side, and so they're not hearing the returns from the tape machine. They're not hearing, so what are they hearing? They're not hearing anything right now except whatever's making noise out in the room. So cue mixes will always be sent from the monitor side. Write that down, it's crucial. Cue mixes are sent from the monitor side. Effect sends are also sent from the monitor side unless you're trying to do something like record an effects to tape. The only time you would send effect sends from the channel side in a tracking mode is if you're trying to record some kind of effect going directly to tape. Okay, the cue section. Where is the cue bus going to? What is the cue bus going to feed? Rachel. What is the cue bus going to feed? Anybody?
The AV data?
Yeah, let's. Yeah. What is it ultimately? What is it going to feed?
A headphone mix, like an
Headphone
output.
mix. Yes, indeed. It's going to feed a headphone mix for the band. So this cue, all these individual strips are going to the cue bus, and then there is a master cue send here. A master cue send. On the O2R96, where is the master cue send? Come on, come on. This was only a few hours ago. Look at your notes. Where's the master cue send? Where's the master auxiliary send on the O2R96? Oh, you just said it a half hour ago.
Fourth layer.
Yeah, on the fourth layer, the master layer. Yes, indeed. What is the difference between a cue bus and an effects bus?
The purpose.
Yes, there really is no actual electrical difference. The only difference is where it ends up. And so that's why in a console like an SSL, it has a dedicated cue bus. But when you're mixing, you don't need cue, so that you can use those for a different additional effects sends. I can add a chorus to something or another delay line or something like that. So electronically, the effects sends and the cue sends are identical. The only difference is where they end up. So this cue bus has a master cue send, and then goes to the cue amp, and then feeds the headphones. Feeds the headphones. All right. The effects bus, where does it end up? Where do we want it to end up? Where do we want the effects bus to feed?
The mix machine.
No. Well, ultimately, yes. That was probably you really got the right idea. What?
But not next.
What? What are we going
Just
to
not
use
next.
to generate reverb?
We want to be able to like hear it when we're mixing, so we want to send it out monitor side on the program bus.
So ultimately, we need some kind of a reverb device. We need something to generate reverb. It could be a little hardware lexicon like we have in Studio B. It could be a plug-in. It could be an internal effect in the console. The Neve does not have any internal reverb effects, so we use the plug-ins in Pro Tools. But ultimately, there will be a master reverb send, and then some kind of device, whether it be a plug-in or a hardware device, that's generating the reverb. And then where's the output of that feeding? Where's the output of the reverb device need to go?
To an aux channel.
No. If we want to be able to hear that reverb, where do we need to get it to? What are we actually listening to?
The speaker?
Yeah, but what's feeding the speaker?
Master fader?
And what's that? What do we call that section of the console?
Program bus.
Program bus, yes indeed. So we're talking about consoles. If you answer program bus, you pretty much have a 50-50 chance of getting it right. So if you're stumped, say program bus. It's a 50-50 chance. All right, so the program bus, yes indeed. So we're going to get the output of our reverb device here going back into the program bus. Back into the program bus so that we hear the reverb in our mix machine and we hear it in our speakers. Any questions? Typically in this class, I would give you a quiz on this next week, but I haven't quite figured out how to give you a quiz that would be of any actual use. But I'm going to post this tonight when we get done, and you need to know this. You need to know this. One, it will be on the midterm. You'll have to label all the parts. I'm not going to make you draw it, but you're going to need to be able to label the parts. And so what would I say the important stuff from today's lecture is? The channel side. The channel side, its job is to amplify the incoming signal and route it to the multitrack. This stuff all up here is the channel side of the console. This is the monitor side. The input to the monitor side is the tape return or the bus. The output of the monitor side is what?
Program bus.
The program bus, yes indeed. The program bus. The program bus feeds our mix machine and feeds the speakers. Feeds the speakers. All right, so the channel side, the monitor side. The other thing is the monitor side of the console can look at either the tape machine or the bus. Or the bus. Can look at the bus directly. Monitor sends. Q sends are typically going to be pre-fader. Effect sends are typically going to be post-fader. Typically going to be post-fader. The output of the reverb device needs to come back to the program bus. And the master sends, you will have master auxiliary sends, master Q sends, master reverb sends. Those control the overall level feeding the headphones or feeding the digital device that's creating reverb. Or maybe it's an EMT 140. Wow.